We are now moving on to St Bees Lighthouse, the last Trinity House lighthouse on the northwest coast of England. But before that, we're going to visit some other lighthouses and boats in Whitehaven Harbor and further north in Maryport Harbor. There are 3 lighthouses in this harbour. This one you see in front of you now is no longer in use, but the 2 behind it are. Why was this called the Old New Quay? Well, this harbour has gone through several stages of development, and you had the original quay, and then a new one was built, the one with this lighthouse on it, and this was called the New Quay. Then they did further extensions further out with the north and west piers, so this then became the Old New Quay. There you go, clear as mud. Yes, typically British. The Watchtower and Old Quay. Erected about 1730, the watchtower was used for general surveillance of sailing vessels in the harbour, so this was never used as a lighthouse. The Old Quay was the fort's first pier of late 17th century foundation, with historic associations including the John Paul Jones raid in 1778, the last invasion of England. Commander Jones was one of the most daring and successful naval commanders of the American Revolution. On April the 23rd, 1778, he leads a small detachment of 2 boats from his ship, the USS Ranger. His aim was to raid the port at Whitehaven, and by his account there was over 400 British merchant ships at anchor, and he was hoping to set them all on fire and destroy lots of stuff. It didn't go according to plan, but they successfully took the southern fort, disabling the cannon, but the other boat returned without attempting an attack on the northern fort. To compensate, Jones set fire to the southern fort, which subsequently engulfed the entire town. They then made their escape. Whitehaven West Pier Lighthouse, built approximately 1832, height 46 feet or roughly 14 meters. Light was 1 green flash every 5 seconds. Range about 8 miles. Not open to the public, but can be reached on foot. Now, in my video, which was shot in about 1993, the lighthouses look sad and neglected. Since then they've been restored and revamped, a lot of money spent on them. And then within hours of the restoration work being completed on both lighthouses, vandals decided to have a go at the place and smashed about 6 windows. And that seems to be what you get in this country and probably lots of other countries. There's those that love to build and those that just love to stamp and smash everything beautiful. Such is life, as they say. Whitehaven North Pier Lighthouse, built approximately 1841, height roughly 20 feet or 6 meters. The light was 1 red flash every 5 seconds, not open to the public but can be reached on foot. Maryport Old Lighthouse. This lighthouse was established in 1846 and is reported to be the oldest cast iron lighthouse in the UK. For many years it was a tidal light and lit only at night when the tide was high enough for boats to enter the harbour. But in 1996 Trinity House replaced it with a small tower at the far end of the pier. So Maryport's old cast iron lighthouse is no longer operational and not open to the public. But it's been restored and repainted so it will no longer look as sad as in my video. Light vessels were craft that were strongly built of steel to withstand the constant and often ferocious buffeting which besets them as they lie at anchor. If you think about it, they have to endure all the storms that everybody else is running for cover from. Everybody runs into harbour if there's a great big storm coming, but these have to sit out on anchor and withstand everything that nature throws at it, just to protect the danger area that they are marking. So in my opinion, the crews were special. Although light vessels had engines, it wasn't for propulsion. The engines were just for maintaining the light, the foghorns, and just general lighting in the ship. They weren't for any form of propulsion whatsoever. The crews were roughly 7 men, 1 master, and the rest as ratings. Although these ships have the names painted on the side for the area that they're covering, they aren't restricted just to that area or just to that site. They go in every now and then to be serviced and given a good overhaul, and while they're out, another ship will take its place and be painted up as the one that left. So if you're researching any of these ships at all, you go on the number of the ship and not the name it has painted on its side at one point in its career. Because the number doesn't change, but the name will often change.
And we went to St Bees and were there for 4 years. I don't particularly have unhappy memories of St Bees, but it is such a godforsaken climate in that part of the world. A lot of people love the Lake District, and I should be the last person to knock it, but I have no regard at all for the Lake District. All I can remember is rain, 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 and still more rain. We were probably more conscious of it because it was one of those stations that used to do the Met. Every hour we used to do the Met, and every 3 hours the synoptics. So you were conscious, and I don't remember there were very, very few days in any year where that rain gauge was completely empty. Anyway, we made a lot of friends there. And it was a very, very interesting place because I got interested in nautical history over there. Because West Cumberland was a place that had built an awful lot of ships and was a very, very busy ports, the West Cumberland ports. But it had all finished, but there was an awful lot of, hadn't been a great deal of population movement, so there was still a lot of records, and I remember doing a lot of nautical research onto Whitehaven ships, which when I left, was almost a trunkload of papers which I deposited in the Carlisle Records office. And I was very pleased to go back over there a couple of years ago to Maryport and find that my collection of photographs now is called the Scythes Collection and is on display in the museum over at Maryport, which I didn't even know until I saw my own name there. That was very gratifying to know at least there was some spin off over it. Then they eventually caught up with me and said, now look, you didn't do an awful lot of rock time when you were made PK, it's about time that you did. And they said, well, you've got to go to the Longstone.
And I left the job as principal keeper in the Lighthouse service. And I joined the job first in 1952. I came across from Ireland, and I went to Blackwall, the Lighthouse Training School in Blackwall, for 2 months. At that time you spent 1 month training in how to light a paraffin light, and then you did another month in metalwork and carpentry. You did a fortnight in metalwork and a fortnight in carpentry. You made a metal box, and you also made a wooden box. And then after that time, then you were taught as well, of course, obviously, how to make bread and a little bit of cooking. And then you went out, you were called out to a station, you were sent out for further training to stations as a supernumerary assistant keeper. And you came back to Blackwall from time to time and went on from there. And then eventually you got appointed to a station as an assistant keeper, and you stayed at that particular station for a number of years. As a supernumerary, of course, you travelled mostly around the country, or into, and you got appointed to districts. You see, the Lighthouse service was divided up into 4 districts at that time, and you got appointed to a district. You see, and then you usually served on the lighthouses in that district. The first lighthouse I went to was Trevose Head in Cornwall in 1952, and my first watch was the middle watch there after travelling from London, and I was afraid to touch anything in case it blew up on my face. And I remember I called the keeper in charge. I was relieving the principal keeper who was ill, and I called the keeper in charge an hour too early. I thought he said call me at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and instead he said call me at 4. And of course when I called him at 3, he thought something had happened, and he came running up the stairs to see what was wrong, you see. So I spent a month on that lighthouse, and then they sent me to St Mary's Lighthouse then from, not St Mary's, sorry, St Bees Lighthouse from Trevose. And I spent a month up there at St Bees, in the Lake District there. It was always my ambition to have a look at the Lake District, and I was able to go there for free. And I was with an old principal keeper there called Tom Pay. I was staying in his house actually, because at that time there was no supernumerary accommodation, and you stayed usually with the principal keeper, and paid him sort of lodgings, and they looked after me well there. And then from there I went down to St Mary's Lighthouse.
St Bees, what was that like?
Beautiful. I keep saying it is beautiful, but it was a really beautiful station, and again a good crew. Or the PK was brilliant. Obviously Murphy, bless his soul, and Jimmy Burkmeyer. I don't know whether you would remembered him or not, but they was good lads.
But for a land station, that's miles from anywhere, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yes. It was back and beyond, really. But it was such a lovely little compact station.
Were you there with your family?
Yeah. Yes, we lived in number 2 houses. And it was a PK, and then they had supers quarters or AK quarters in between the 2 houses, you see. But there was only a little squat tower. And it was a good station. I was there for 2 years, and then I put in for a transfer to a rock, or Cornish rock really, and sent to the longships, which was a bit of a contrast from the Bishop and the Eddystone. After the room on those, come down to that little thing, it was a different way of life.
So it's tiny in comparison.
Oh gosh, yes, you can compare them.